Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Cutter One. I'm your host, J, your resident troublemaker and your resident culture warrior. I hope you're all doing awesome on this Friday as we head on into the weekend. We finally made it to the end of the week, folks. Let's all take a deep breath and enjoy. All right. Having said that, let's get right into it. We got this article coming to us from the good folks over at Screen Rant, and this is the Lord of the Rings movies completely changed Merry and Pippin for the better. This is coming to us from Angel Shaw. Merry and Pippin in the Lord of the Rings books were very different compared to the movies, but this change ultimately worked for the better. Let me just pause this right here. Hold on. All right, just keep that right there. Okay. All right, now stop moving around, you thing. Okay. Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings film trilogy completely changed Merry and Pippin from J.R.R. Tolkien's books, but this ultimately made the hobbits even more likable. This is not always the case for changes made in book-to-screen adaptations, which are often criticized. In the case of Frodo Baggins' friends and fellow adventurers on the quest to save Middle-earth, however, the changes made to their movie characters were so genuine it became easy to forget that they were written very differently. When audiences first met Merry and Pippin in the Lord of the Rings movies, they were sneaking around Gandalf's wagon in search of fun fireworks to steal. When they set off the explosive dragon, Gandalf snatched them up by their ears and scolded them for their shenanigans. They are later seen when Frodo and Sam exit the Shire, stealing vegetables from Farmer Maggot's crop. This was not exactly how Merry and Pippin were depicted in J.R.R. Tolkien's original version of The Lord of the Rings. Merry and Pippin weren't tricksters in the Lord of the Rings books. In the Lord of the Rings books, Merry especially is very different compared to how he was seen on screen. Merry has been one of Frodo's closest friends and confidants, and could be depended upon to do responsible things such as sell Bag End and purchase a new home so that no one would be suspicious of Frodo's great escape. Pippin, who was quite a bit younger than his companions and hardly even considered an adult by Hobbit standards, was a little less responsible. Still, Pippin was regarded by his community as a kind and lovable young hobbit. There was certainly no stealing fireworks or crops for Merry and Pippin in the Lord of the Rings books. In fact, they were both excellent friends of Farmer Maggot. However, that is not to say the duo didn't still fill the, quote, jester character archetype. Merry and Pippin each had the innocent, charming nature of hobbits. Concerns about second breakfast and a deep love for pints of ale and pipeweed were still significant parts of their personalities. They often found themselves in trouble, but not because they had gone looking for it, as they did in the Lord of the Rings movies. Merry and Pippin in the books just tended to be overly curious. Pippin often got into trouble in the Lord of the Rings books, but only from curiosity. Pippin was the most curious of his hobbit companions, which often got him into trouble with Gandalf. For example, while Pippin accidentally knocked a skeleton into the well in Moria during the Lord of the Rings movies, his book counterpart purposely dropped a pebble into the depths. He had only wanted to know how deep it was, and only when Gandalf deemed him, quote, a fool of a took, did he realize it had been a silly mistake. The Palantir is another example of Pippin's curiosity gone wrong, but in this case, the events of the movie went somewhat similarly to the Lord of the Rings books. However, the books explained a little better that since Pippin had been the one to find the spherical seeing stone and retrieve it after Saruman's fall, the pull of temptation was just too much for him to withstand. Pippin was not being willfully disobedient when he sneaked out of bed to take the Palantir from Gandalf. He really could not help it. Merry and Pippin's Lord of the Rings movie changes made them even more lovable. Before the Fellowship of the Ring movie came out, Merry and Pippin were common favorites in Lord of the Rings, and changes to their personalities would not be taken lightly. Since these changes made the hobbits even more endearing, however, they were generally accepted with little resistance. The alterations, though not entirely canon, fit Merry and Pippin's established characters so well that it was believable that the Lord of the Rings books simply missed those aspects of their personalities. The versions of Merry and Pippin in the books might have been taken aback by the idea of stealing food and setting off magical fireworks, but adding these qualities to their movie counterparts helped communicate some canon aspects of their identities. Merry and Pippin were always genuinely innocent lovers of food, drink, smoke, and laughs. It made sense for Peter Jackson, the Lord of the Rings movies trilogy, to translate them into tricksters to help audiences better understand this and fall in love with them even faster. Merry and Pippin may have been changed from the books, but it was the kind of change that enhanced the story. And this is coming from Angel Shaw. All right, on the face of it, I'll agree with that. Um, as a general matter of principle, yes, I would say that they slightly changed. They weren't really changed a lot, right? It's more, as the article even sort of alludes to, it's more in the general mischievous aspect of the characters in the movie is different from the characters in the books. Characters in the books were less mischievous. But equally as curious, right? Whereas in the movies, they sort of have this like 50-50 split between being overly curious, almost dangerously curious, as well as being very mischievous and just looking to have fun and goof around, right? So there's slight differences. I will agree with Angel Shaw that there's slight differences here. I don't think it's as much as the article sort of implies. But then again, that's just my interpretation of it. Um, I do find it interesting because again, it ever since the Rings of Pewter and ever since the Warner Brothers announcement, you see more and more of these articles, right? We're seeing more and more. Initially, it was, oh well, Peter Jackson's movies aren't that great, right? Like there's flaws in them. You Tolkien fans just sort of chose to ignore them, and then we sort of saw where this one sort of falls in, which is that category of, well, Peter Jackson changed quite a bit, right? Like to hear like the way Screen Rant presents it, or CBR.com, or some of these other online news sources, you would think that pretty much everything in Peter Jackson's movie is at least on some level completely made up, right? And again, I would ask, what's the point in doing that? Well, it's them sort of saying, listen, if you were okay with Peter Jackson changing stuff, why are you guys being so hard on Rings of Pewter? And they're just doing the same thing. They're making slight changes to enhance the story. And it's like, no, they're not. It's completely different. There is a huge difference between what Peter Jackson did with the characters of Merry and Pippin, right? What he did was he took their characters as Tolkien wrote them, and he played up certain characteristics of them, right? I.e., in the books, they're still curious and a little mischievous. It's not like they don't play around at all, right? And Peter Jackson just sort of highlighted that as something for the fans to sort of, or for the audience to sort of, you know, empathize with those characters and relate to those characters. Everybody, you know, at the start of some big journey, whether you're driving cross country, and so on and so forth, there's that excitement of the unknown. And everybody, if you've ever done a road trip with your friends, everybody's a little goofy, a little playful, a little mischievous because you're just starting out. It's the beginning of the journey. And I think Peter Jackson just highlighted that for these characters as a way for the audience to sort of identify with them, right? Which is kind of what the article says. I just think that the article is sort of doing it from a disingenuous standpoint, from a disingenuous, with disingenuous motivations. I'll say it that way. And I know some people say, oh, that's like, conspiracy. Like every article, even if it says that Peter Jackson's changes were good, is still somewhat bad. No, what I'm saying is that these are the same people that when the marketing campaign for season 2 of Rings of Pewter actually starts, these are the same people whose articles will suddenly take a more confrontational tone with the fans. These are the people whose articles will suddenly take a more confrontational or more critical view of Peter Jackson's movies, right? And Warner Brothers and stuff. And we've already seen it to some degree, right? Like I did an entire day where I put out 5 videos, and every single one of them was about an article that had come out within 72 hours of each other. Every article throughout that day that I did a video about came out within 72 hours of each other, and they were all negative, and they were either ripping at the fans, they were ripping at Peter Jackson's movies, at Peter Jackson himself, or at Warner Brothers, right? And I think that's what we're going to be seeing this time next year, right? Right now, we're seeing this. We're seeing the sort of subtle, hey, Peter Jackson made a whole lot of changes. Some of them were even for the better, right? So, when Lord of the Rings, Rings of Pewter does the same thing, we're going to be on board with that, right? And it's like you don't understand the nuances of the differences between what Rings of Pewter is doing and what Peter Jackson did, right? Peter Jackson took what was there and highlighted or brought things to the forefront that would resonate with the audience. Rings of Pewter is not taking things that Tolkien wrote. It's literally saying, well, Tolkien didn't write this, so let's just come up with our own shit. That's a big difference, okay? But these articles, like the other one, the previous, not the one about Éomer, but the previous one about Sauron as the necromancer, I showed you how even with the image for the article, they're working in Rings of Pewter as if it's just natural now to see, like, Sauron from the movies and Sauron from Rings of Pewter together. They're trying to link them subconsciously to the viewer, because the average viewer is not going to pick up on that. They're just going to say, all right, Sauron picture, Sauron picture, Sauron picture. Okay, it's only Tolkien fans that go legitimate Sauron picture, Rings of Pewter bullshit. Right? And I know it sounds weird when I say it, because you guys are like, damn, you're finding reasons to hate the mainstream media and everything and stuff like that. And I wouldn't say that that's what I'm doing. I would say that what I'm doing is, again, I know how this is going to play out. We all should know how this is going to play out. This isn't none of us should be surprised. We've all seen this before. We saw this done with the Star Wars community. We saw this done with the Doctor Who community, with the Star Trek community, right? We've seen this game plan before, right? It's the slow, let's sort of gradually sort of take pot shots at Peter Jackson and the other films, because those are what Rings of Pewter is being compared to. So that's what we have to attack. But we can't overtly attack it, so let's subtly attack it, right? Let's also subtly link Rings of Pewter with any mention of Lord of the Rings in the minds of viewers by working in pictures and references. I mean, how many articles that have I done videos on where you guys see where they just randomly will throw a reference to Rings of Pewter in there, even if it has nothing to do with it, like the article about Sauron the Necromancer, right? And also with this, and I don't want to get sidetracked with this article, while I may agree with a lot of what's being said, I understand why they're saying it. They're saying it because what they're trying to do is say, see, we all agree that sometimes making changes from the source material is a good thing. And therefore, when the Rings of Pewter season 2 comes out and does that, right, that you should be okay with it. And my argument, my counter to that is, no, one, I can see what you're doing here, okay, because I too have a degree in media, right? I was trained how to do this stuff, okay? But number two, what Rings of Pewter is doing is completely different. Again, Peter Jackson took what was there, the essence of what was there in the original source material, and tried to bring it to the forefront. What Rings of Pewter is doing is saying what's not there, and let's make up our own version of it. And that's two completely different things. But anyway, I digress. I've gone on long enough about this. I just thought, last video of the day, let's go out with Merry and Pippin. They're hobbits, they're fun, and everybody loves Merry and Pippin. right? So I just wanted to end it on that note. So anyway, it is Friday. Remember, we have the live stream tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, U.S. time. So yeah, I would hope that you will all be there and join me. I don't know what I'm doing yet, but it'll be the first show for the new month of April, and I'll figure it out. But yes, I hope to see you all there in the live stream. Say hello in the chat. We have a good time. We generally have a good time. We watch usually some like fan created stuff, be it short films or videos or music and stuff like that. So yeah, we always have a good time and we discuss things, and it's cool, and we get caught up on what's been going on throughout the week. So hopefully I'll see you all there tomorrow, again, 6 p.m. Eastern time. Okay. That's going to do it for this one. Remember to join us over in Discord. I'll put the link down in the description below, as well as check out the merch if you're interested in the merch. I got some of it there. That picture, that's the merch. That's the Stay More Dorkish from Sauroff, because you can't call him Sauron, because otherwise Warner Brothers, copyright violate you. So that's Sauroff saying "Stay More Dorkish." But yeah, go check it out over on the merch site for the channel. If there's anything interesting, really cool looking shirts. All right, and that's going to do it for me. So remember, if you like the video. If you feel like sharing the video, by all means do so, because it does get it seen, it gets eyes on, and it helps us with the YouTube algorithm. If you have not subscribed, I would hope that you would consider subscribing and joining the army of beautiful badasses as we hold the line to defend Professor Tolkien's work, to defend the world of Middle-earth as we know it. As well as other high fantasy franchises and worlds that we've grown up to love, right? Or that we've grown to love, be they Dungeons and Dragons, Dragonlance, Elder Scrolls, etc., right? So yeah, so if you would hit that subscribe button, consider joining the army of beautiful badasses. We've got cake. I don't know what that meant. It sounded good in my head. Anyway, that's going to do it. If you are a returning subscriber, as always, I thank you from the bottom of my heart. You guys and gals make this all worthwhile. All right, folks, that's going to do it for me for today. I will see you all tomorrow, definitely at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live stream. I'm probably going to put out a couple of videos throughout the day as well, but definitely we will be live streaming tomorrow. So I hope to see you all there, see you in the chat, saying hello, and we'll have a good old time, right? All right, folks, that's going to do it for me. Remember to be good, be awesome, be safe, but more importantly, stay more dorkish. All right, peace. Bye.